We spoke about the value of relationships. So you're walking into offices that have relationships with attorneys already. Looked to the receptionist and I said, can I chat to some agents today? I'd love to give them a cupcake and my business card. And she looked up at me and she said, sorry, nobody's in today. And I looked up behind her and there were at least 20 agents staring back at me. But unfortunately, you take your cupcakes, you get into your car, and the next day you try again.
Hi everybody, welcome back to the Thoughtonomy podcast, where we like to get you to think for yourself in a world that doesn't want you to. And we're not in the Tim's studios today in Hillcrest. They've actually come to us. We're in my office in Glen Ashley, but the guys are here. Thanks very much for coming down and setting up. It's been quite a mission for them to put everything together. But very happy to welcome my guest today. It's Lisa Boniface. Lisa is a conveyancing attorney from Dykes van Heerden. Lisa, welcome.
Thank you, Grant. It's so nice to be in this chair.
Lovely to have you here. I mean, Lisa is in and out of our business all the time. But what I always like to say is we're going to hear a little bit about Lisa's story today, but we're not here to talk conveyancing. We're not here to talk business. I love the story behind the growth or the story behind the journey. But before we get there, Lisa, why don't you tell us, or tell everybody out there a little bit about you and what it is that you do today?
Okay, so Grant, I'm a partner at Dykes van Heerden Attorneys. We specialize in property law. I'm also a mom to 2 little girls. Just recently moved to the Durban North area. So it's been amazing working with your team a little bit more. And just passionate about everything property and people. So I came into this industry wondering if it was for me. I nearly ended up taking a litigation job.
But was it always going to be law?
Yes. So thought I'd go back into litigation because that's where I had started. And someone had a hard chat with me and said, Lisa, you're born to do this job. It's all about people and relationships. And I thought I would give it another 6 months. And 15 years later, Grant, I'm so glad I decided to go along for the ride. So it's been an incredible
you
journey.
Don't have to give the name away if you don't want to. The person that kind of guided you, it's so important to have people like that in your life. And if you look back on the advice that this person gave you, it's really crafted a journey for you. Is that someone that's in your life, that has been a mentor? What was the role that person's played in your life?
So it's actually Peter Dykes. So when it comes to Dykes van Heerden, he is one of the managing named partners. And he clearly wanted it to work because our success meant his success. So I think very influential. And also I think he had been in the game for many years and he had gone through some of the challenges that I was going through in starting a business and introducing myself into not only a market where I was completely unknown, but KZN wasn't my home. I had come from Johannesburg, so I didn't even have a friend in this jurisdiction. It was quite lonely, the initial stages. And I think he just said to me, his advice was, Lisa, this is a long game. It's a game of consistency. It's one of doing things with great intention. There's no quick wins. And we're going to have to put the work in, and the return, I can promise you, will come if we just ensure that we put the activities in, which I started doing, and here we are.
I think you've pretty much summed up this entire podcast in that sentence. That could be the most amazing conclusion to this, because obviously I know your journey. Lisa has shared her journey with us, and I always ask Lisa to come in and share it with our staff because we're in sales. Lisa's in law, but it doesn't matter what industry you're in. Sales and relationship building actually makes such a huge part of building a business. And we were speaking a little bit off camera as well. As we're talking, we'll be talking business, but this type of conversation on building relationships long term can also work in the personal space as well. But why don't you take us back to the beginning? And let's start there, because this is the power in the story for anybody who's listening out there, is that nothing is built overnight. So many people think that they have this dream and they have this most amazing idea or concept, and it could be an amazing idea or concept, but they have this belief that they're going to start the business today and everybody's going to see the business for how they see it, and they're going to be flying through the door, they're going to be selling stuff off the shelves, or they're going to be in huge demand from day one. But it very rarely happens like that. And relationships and networking is so important. Now, you just said you came from Johannesburg to Durban. I will very reluctantly take on a salesperson in my real estate business who moves from Joburg. And the main reason is because they know nobody. And people do business with people they know, trust, and like. So why don't you take us back to that? What was it like coming to KZN, knowing that you were going to set up this business? Pressure on your shoulders because there's partners in Joburg. How did you approach it? And tell us brutally, like how tough was it back then?
So Grant, there's that saying that says success comes from failure after failure without losing enthusiasm. And when I look back at Tom and I in those early years.
So Tom is your business partner?
Yes, he's my business partner. There were definitely many, many challenges and failures. But I think what we kept was our enthusiasm. So it's about 14 years ago now where we packed our cars with as much stuff as we could put in them, and we drove down to KZN on the Saturday. We started working at Dykes van Heerden on the Monday. And it was extremely challenging at the time. I think I had never done conveyancing before. So it was completely new to me. I remember on the first day of work, Tom and I drove together, and I was reading through the conveyancing manual, and he looked over to me and he said, "Lisa, I'm sure you're not going to be asked any questions today." And I said, "Well, you never know." So what we did, and we actually at the beginning were very much in the deep end. We had very little guidance. So we try to work out things ourselves, thinking we'll look at the map of KZN and let's try and meet as many people as we can, as quickly as we can. And we learned the hard way there, Grant, because we were driving from Port Edward to Ballito. And people would see us, we would make a small impact, but then they wouldn't see us for 3 months again. Or they would give us a deal, but then they wouldn't see us. We weren't top of mind. We weren't really adding any value. They spoke about us in their offices saying, "Remember those 2 youngsters that walked in? We were 24 at the time."
Because you were spreading yourself
We were
so
spreading,
thin, right?
so we had cast our net too wide. And for the first 6 months, we were running from pillar to post, and we weren't seeing any return on the investments.
So there's a good lesson straight off the bat.
Yes.
When you're starting a business or you're starting something, get a little niche, focused target area and build a network, build relationships, and build a brand there first.
Yes, definitely. So we looked then in our own backyard, and we thought there's X amount of agents, and that was in Amanzimtoti. So it was very humble beginnings for us, and a very special place to us now because it's where we get or derive a lot of our conveyancing work from, with some special people that we still have great relationships with. But we thought, let's start there. And we started slowly. And that's where I said, in terms of Peter Dykes' advice initially, it's about consistency. It's about seeing people regularly. And he said to me on the phone that this isn't a quick win, Lisa. He said this is a long-term game. And he was 100% right, because when we started just looking in our backyard and focusing and prospecting on that area first, we started seeing a much bigger return in what we were putting out there.
What were like the practical steps that you and Tom did? Was it a case of simply just writing a list of every single agency in town and then going and knocking on the door? How did that play itself out?
So Grant, believe it or not, and I mean, I don't consider myself too old, but I'm clearly getting much older. When we arrived at Dykes van Heerden, it had been an existing business before us, and there was a box of business cards in it. So we started with those business cards, but using Google and the platforms, we started creating our own database. But we knew where the big agencies existed, and we just started walking into offices.
And how were you received?
So, I mean, you know the story.
That's why I'm asking.
And my PROs now love the story of me putting on spinning music before I walked into any office, because it was very daunting. We spoke about the value of relationships. So you're walking into offices that have relationships with attorneys already. And I remember one occasion walking into an office in Amanzimtoti, And you'll know, Grant, from being in this industry, that it's generally very open plan, the setup in any real estate business. And I looked to the receptionist and I said, can I chat to some agents today? I'd love to give them a cupcake and my business card. And she looked up at me and she said, sorry, nobody's in today. And I looked up behind her and there were at least 20 agents staring back at me. But unfortunately, you take your cupcakes, you get into your car, and the next day you try again.
How many people would have quit? They would have left the office that day, felt that pain of rejection. Nobody likes to be rejected. How did you deal with that? Because you must have walked out of there like someone had punched you in the stomach.
Yeah. So, Grant, I think it comes with a lot of resilience. I think growing up, with 3 brothers, I learned resilience in quite a big way. But when I look back at resilience, and especially on the last 14 years at Dykes van Heerden, I think purpose, or a strong purpose, fuels resilience.
Absolutely.
And when we were starting to feel quite let down, I had made a call to Peter Dykes. The litigation business in Joburg had approached me, offered me a really good package. I knew that in order to stay and to get through these challenges, we needed to define a specific purpose as to why we get up in the morning. And we had been running around like headless chickens, but we really needed to identify what it is that we do, what difference do we make in the world. And it was exploring and being quite involved in a lot of the transactions then, so running the conveyancing deals from beginning to end. I met a lady who had lived in a property for 30 years, and I was quite personally involved in this particular transaction. And it was then that I realized how momentous or important this milestone was for this particular lady, because she had lost her husband in that home. It was the home that she had raised her kids and her grandkids in, and she was now moving on, and this sale was a hugely important milestone in her life. And then we come across so many others, Grant, where we have someone who's upgraded their lifestyle and moved into a new area as a first-time buyer, and being part of that excitement. So I know it sounds really cliched, but we did sit down with a very small team at the time and worked out what our why was. And very cliched, but it was really making dreams come true. We were part of that journey and that process. And I think when you know why you're waking up in the morning and you know what you're doing each day, I think you overcome those challenges quite easily.
Absolutely.
And
the passion side of it's so important because, I mean, I always say in our game, but this can relate to any sales industry, is you're going to get punched in the guts 3 or 4 times a day, especially when you're prospecting and you're canvassing for new business. And you were feeling that all the time. So I love that you've used the word resilience. I always say success, my definition of success is discipline plus resilience. And the discipline is doing what you have to do, whether you feel like it or not. So that's you going around, knocking on doors, going and visiting people, taking the nose on the chin, taking the rejection, but still then having the resilience to get up and do it again tomorrow. And the resilience is just your grit. And people will give up too soon. Everyone expects success to be instant or overnight, and we all suffer from a lack of patience. But part of patience is knowing that with the discipline, you're planting these seeds all the time, but you can't just plant the seed once and walk away because somebody rejects you. You got to keep then watering the seeds in order for them to harvest, and you guys did that over a long period of time. Interestingly, that office that you walked into, where the receptionist said nobody's here, but there's like 20 people behind. Did you ever get business from them?
Yes.
Okay.
So we did change our strategy a little bit, Grant. I mean, you've gotten to know Tom and myself over the past few years, and we are the type of people where it's very unnatural for us to ask for business. So I've never had a salesperson in my life where, you know, I've seen what a cold calling type of scenario looks like, and it just was the most unnatural thing for us to pick up the phone and do a cold call and ask for business.
But it is, and that's why I always even say to my sales guys and my agents, I say cold calling is the hardest thing you can do. You're literally phoning somebody randomly out of the blue to ask them if on that particular day they need your goods or services. That's a 95, 96% chance that they're going to say no. But that's why we shift our focus in sales. Sales is actually about relationships and building relationships and working relationships and getting referrals from people who already like and trust you. And that's what you're building. But that is the thing that takes the longest. I mean, if you consider, let's go to personal. You meet somebody for the first time. It takes you a long while in dating or in going out with this person to learn about that person, to learn about what they like, what they don't like, how you're similar, how you're different. And the longer you go, the stronger the relationship gets. It's the same in business. If you're walking into a canvassing opportunity, particularly when that person's already getting business that you do from somebody else, you've got to position yourself as, well, I'm going to show you value first. And then you may or may not see that value and choose to use me at some point in the future. And that's kind of your game, isn't it?
Definitely. So, Grant, we sat down and we thought to ourselves, how do we get someone to give us business without asking for it?
Okay.
So that was the question we asked.
I think everybody listening to this podcast will want to know the answer to that, because everyone hates asking for business.
And we came up with some ideas where we could add value first. And we hoped in our approach the phone would then ring. So DVH roadshows were born. And we did our first one in Amanzimtoti, and we couldn't believe that 100 people RSVP'd to say yes.
Just explain quickly for people listening what a DVH roadshow is.
Okay, so it was an educational morning where we did a bit of legal training for the industry, and we would bring in a motivational speaker. So just to motivate the agents, and it had been done in other jurisdictions. Our Cape Town office had been doing it quite successfully.
Okay.
We believe we were the market leaders in this jurisdiction. Training had been done before, but not quite road shows with motivational speakers.
Yeah.
And then they grew, as you know, over time.
I remember coming to one of yours at Hillcrest in that big church.
Yes.
Where you and Tom did a skit. Like a legal skit.
Yeah.
We didn't, I think I knew you, but we didn't have a business relationship at all. But it was very valuable. So I was there as a non-client getting value from your event. And what it did is it really put your brand in my mind from a branding perspective.
So Grant, for the first one, I mean, you're talking about us dressed up. I don't know if we had boxing gloves on and we did a case where we dressed up. I can't remember which one you were at.
It wasn't boxing gloves. I can't remember
I suppose just being unreasonable in our pursuits, as Dykes van Heerden generally likes to play the game. But my first road show, I read out a poem. It was called The A to Z of Estate Agents.
Did you write the poem?
I wrote the poem. And this was, I mean, I can only look back and go, what was I thinking?
It's pretty vulnerable.
Very vulnerable. I think it went something like, A is for attorneys we love and we hate. B is for bonds, declined is their fate. Something to that effect. And believe it or not, I got more emails about the poem after the roadshow than I did around the legal sector. So we did the roadshow, and Grant's agents started phoning us. And deals started coming in. And we just couldn't believe that we didn't actually have to ask anyone for business. We could add value first, and the phone started ringing.
But the point is you were doing something.
Yes.
So I always say, like, if you do nothing, expect nothing. But anything is better than nothing. And there are so many different things that you can do to make the phone ring. There's so many different prospecting and canvassing activities you can do. Just pick one that you feel comfortable with and are good at, but jump in with both feet. You know, and that's what you guys did. And I mean, it must have cost you a fortune, because I know what an event costs to put on, and you got to pay speakers to be there. But you were also putting yourself up on stage and really putting yourself out there with a bit of vulnerability, so people got to see who you are, the authenticity of who Lisa and Tom are. But amazing that the phone started to ring, but you were doing something.
We then thought about mini listings, and we bought 2 aprons from Macro and a Weber bra.
Okay, so a mini listing is when an agent gets a property for sale and they want to invite all the other agents to come and view the property. But then Lisa and Tom would arrive, or Lisa would arrive, and what do you do? Tell everyone.
So make some bacon and egg rolls. So every agent that walked in got a bacon and egg roll. And the first time we did it, Grant, and that's why I say the people in Amanzimtoti are very special, we forgot to take the layer of plastic off the braai. So we actually went up in smoke. But once again, that's what people remember. And we often talk about that story about Lisa and Tom going up in smoke in those beginning stages. And I think it's just about putting the activities in. And if one of the activities, or if there is someone who doesn't use you, or you walk into an agency and they say they've got a relationship, you're no longer welcome. You've got so many other things in the pipeline to be concerned about that you don't really feel the pain as much.
So once you'd done your roadshow and you'd kind of established your brand, did you have to still go and do the hard, cold canvassing? Were you still doing that? Was it now easier because they knew who you were?
So, Grant, I think that cold call, and I think you've said it in a training session, became a bold call.
Yeah.
But it's a much easier phone call when you walk into an office or you pick up the phone to set up a coffee, because they go, "Oh, Lisa, I came to your roadshow. Tom did the legal training. I remember you guys.
Yes.
Haven't we seen you before?" And it was then quite easy to get a coffee date and then start talking about how we can do business together.
So I just want to highlight a lesson here, because that's powerful. So there's two things you can do in sales, and it's something I always coach. It's marketing or branding. Now, I'm not a marketing expert. I'm not a strategist. I didn't study marketing, but the way I've always been explained, and this is what I use, is when you're doing marketing, you're focusing on the people that you know. So you go into your database, you're phoning your lists, you're reaching out to people who you know. You have their details. Branding is about who knows you. And it's so powerful. So marketing, I'm reaching out to people and I'm looking for business. I'm hunting or canvassing for business. Branding, I'm doing something that puts me out there where people I don't know about me. And that's what happened with the roadshow. So the people in the audience, you don't know who's there. You don't know who's sitting in the audience, but after that event, they know you. Likewise, a powerful social media strategy. There are going to be people out there who are following you that you don't know them, but they know you, they're following you, they're watching your life. So when you see them one day, they go, I already know you. And that's what was happening there. And then that makes the canvassing side easier, because there's a little bit of familiarity with you and your brand.
Definitely. I ended up getting onto the Espresso show. I was called at the time the legal training expert in KZN.
Run with it.
No, exactly. And I mean, I didn't really consider myself to be, but that was also great exposure. And again, just putting yourself out there. It's amazing what comes back, Grant, in other ways. Maybe not a deal, but in other ways.
It's, again, the law of cause and effect. When you do something, whatever you do, you're going to get a direct or an indirect result. So I could put this podcast out and I can get direct benefit from people commenting on it, and I see that. Or somebody shares the podcast with a friend, I don't see that, who they shared with another friend and end up coming and buying a book from me. It's an indirect result to something I did, but I had to do the podcast first. And that's the thing, again, with sales. It's all activity driven. If you're doing no activities, expect no results. The minute you start doing something, there's also this law of unintended consequence, where you start doing something and then something completely unexpected happens. And people call it luck, and it drives me mad. I hate it when people call it luck. It's not luck. You were doing something in the beginning. So what is the situation like today, just in terms of where you guys placed? I mean, you've got a very large conveyancing business. So humble beginnings, hard slog, hitting the ground, trying to get into places that didn't want to accept you. Where are you now after 14 years?
So, Grant, we've grown our team significantly. So we're a staff complement of 60 people. So I always like to say there's a power team of 60 people around every conveyancing deal, because we all play a part in that journey. We've got offices in Maritzburg, Upper Highway, Durban North, and Warner Beach. We believed in KZN that people like to use local businesses. So often when we tried to get business in Ballito and we were a Warner Beach business, they struggled with the concept of travel. Very different in Johannesburg, but here it was a big deal. So we needed to change our model. And so we ended up opening up offices in different jurisdictions. I think we wanted to be the approachable attorneys, the open door attorneys. And so having an attorney's office in the communities we lived and worked was important to us. And I think it made a significant difference.
Yeah, right. And another strategy I've noticed is you always get involved with community initiatives wherever you open an office, which is very endearing when the community can see that the business is giving something back.
Yes, yeah, it's a big part of our business, Grant, is giving back to the communities that we live in. And we're passionate about property. So it just makes sense for us to get involved in these community initiatives. It brings more people to areas and it promotes areas. And so it's a bigger way of also assisting in that process.
I just had a thought. So an attorney and an estate agent get onto a podcast. It sounds like a bad joke, right?
Yeah.
We're not that bad.
Walked into a bar.
We're not that bad. Let's just shift a bit because, I think everyone who's been listening up till now can obviously hear that it takes 14 years to build something significant in your instance. Anything worth building is going to take time, and you have to have the resilience to keep going even through the tough times. In my Thoughtonomy book, I think there's a quote or something that I say with regards to instant gratification is a massive killer of people's dreams, because we all believe that we're going to have success instantly. And we're living in this instant society where we can get whatever we want today, but you don't get everything you want today, particularly when it comes to building, whether you're in sales or in business. And we've heard your story, and I think you've nailed all the points. So I think there's been some amazing takeaways that people out there are listening to. But let's shift slightly to giving, because a big aspect of what you've done is giving. And it's giving first when you aren't necessarily going to be receiving straight away. So whenever you are building a business and you're building relationships, you're giving a lot of yourself. You're giving, even if it's just time, advice. How many times have you given potential clients advice? They've taken your advice and they haven't given you the deal. It's part of the giving, right? But givers also have to learn boundaries. Now, in a personal environment, it's probably a little easier to have that conversation. Is it as easy in business? Because you have to give of your value and your time and your knowledge, whatever it may be. I'm not talking money here. You're giving of yourself to people who may or may not use your services. How long do you stretch that out? Have you guys kind of worked that out, or is it a never-ending trail of giving?
Yeah. So Grant, this boundary has been a very difficult one for Dykes.
It's very tough, I know.
You know a lot of my team, and generally we hate this particular boundary because we are the yes firm and we've given so much over the last 14 years. We know that there's always going to be a return. But at the end of the day, our operation is an expensive one, Grant. And we did have to start analyzing things more carefully when asked to get involved in certain things or to give of our time. Because unfortunately, what does happen in this game is you do get asked a lot of yourself. And being known in the industry as the givers, we generally get approached the most as well.
Isn't that life in general?
Yes, exactly.
A human being who is a giver, everyone knows it, that can be taken advantage of. And the giver gets a fulfillment from giving. So it's very hard for a giver to stop. I'll never forget Simon Sinek said that once when I did my traffic light experience. I actually use it in my talk, where the giving is a transaction. So I'm giving to you of my time, my efforts, my love, my energy, my money, whatever it is, my advice, my coaching, and you're receiving that. So what you're getting from the transaction is everything that I've given to you, and it's going to be of some value to you. What the giver receives in return is often nothing, in inverted commas, but what the giver receives in return is this most incredible feeling of fulfillment. It's a little bit like it's a bit of a drug to some people. You know, the fulfilled feeling that you get of helping another person. But there's people out there who notice that and are not afraid to ask.
Yes.
And it's quite a balance in business. As to, you just mentioned you tracking expense. So it is the giving is a marketing expense in a sense. And what is my return on marketing? So have you figured that out? Have you come to a conclusion? Like, help us.
Yeah, so Grant, there is times when we do look at what work we've received in terms of the giving that we've done.
Yeah.
And it's just a conversation to say, unfortunately, we can't assist you this time around. You know, so we've had to make those hard decisions in our business. There has to be some form of boundaries. The last thing you want, I know it's very satisfying, and people in my team have boundary issues. Including myself, Grant. And so we hate saying no, regardless of how many deals are coming in. But at the end of the day, you also don't want to be taken advantage of.
That's the key. That's the key.
And it's sometimes yourself that you're giving. And if you say yes to them, who are you saying no to? So there is definitely getting that balance right.
I mentioned this in the book as well. There's a section on boundaries. Boundaries is all about you and your self-respect. Boundaries are put in place to preserve your self-respect. So you hit the nail on the head there. If you ever feel you're being taken advantage of, that's when the boundary goes up.
Yes.
And the thing with the boundary is it's quite powerful, because if you have somebody who has been taking advantage of you, and it could be for anything. I'm not stereotyping any particular behavior in our industry or personal. But when you put the boundary up, the reaction of the other person is now very important, because they're not used to you and this version of you with this boundary. If they run away and never give you business ever again and badmouth you, well, maybe that's a client that is best you never deal with again.
Of course.
Or they go away, they realize something within themselves, and they come back and they go, okay, sorry, I'm here still, I value you on your new level in terms with boundaries in place. So it's all about how you teach other people to treat you. But it comes down to you and your self-respect. And I think in business, it's important.
And we've seen both of those scenarios play out, Grant.
I'm sure you have.
They're the ones we don't hear from again.
Yeah.
And they go off in a little bit of a bad mood. And then others that actually come back to us and go, okay, how do we get this going? We can see how much value you add. This relationship has become important to us. Let's work on ways where we can get more business through your doors. It's actually amazing when you have that conversation, because sometimes it brings out a plan. And quite often we're all so busy, and potentially the business owner or the principal hasn't put a plan in place that can easily be implemented. And so we then are at their Monday morning meetings, or we start doing training with their team, or, you know, we get an in, and then we just wished we had the conversation much sooner.
But this is the beauty about doing business in relationship-based businesses and relationship-based sales, where everything's about developing a relationship, is you actually get to choose to do business with people you like. And if the boundaries go up and it pushes away the people that were only there ready to just take advantage or whatever, then they shift off to somebody else, and you're left with doing business with people that you like. And for all of us, I mean, we're in sales or we're running businesses. Why would we want to do business with anyone else other than who we like? Because the people who like us are going to refer us to people as well. So it's a powerful thing that you've tapped on there. And tell me just quickly on a personal level, how having the little kiddies now, Lisa's got two little girls, beautiful little girls. How's that impacted you as a businesswoman?
Yeah. So Grant, it's become very busy, but I do think I prioritize my time a little bit better. It's quite amazing to see how you start saying no to things that are unimportant. And yes, so I've had to learn boundaries. I think my husband has also helped me with that. And yeah, I think it's amazing what you can achieve when you know you've got X amounts of time. You need to be productive in that time, because you've got to juggle other things now in your life that are important to you. So that's been something interesting. And you think about how much time you actually wasted before, because you could and you didn't really have another priority to manage.
Like you had excess time.
Yes,
that was just,
exactly. You wish you could have that time back now,
Sure you do.
but to sleep a little bit. But I think just prioritizing time. I actually think I've become more productive as a working mom, and I'm adding a lot more value than I have in the past. So it's been quite an amazing journey.
And also, I think where your business is now, you've added that second layer below you and Tom of management and directorship and partners, etc. And that also alleviates time pressure from you. So imagine having 2 kids when you and Tom were building this 14 years ago.
Definitely. So Grant. So I do take my hat off to any single mom or moms that start out businesses with young children. It must be very challenging. And I think what Tom and I have done over the years is we found people that are like-minded, that are as passionate as we are about why we wake up in the morning. And we've been very lucky to surround ourselves with those people. And I think, Grant, when it comes to my why, in terms of this business, there's been a massive shift. And it's the team around me is one of the biggest reasons why I wake up in the morning. Because when they're fighting as hard as you fighting and they're doing it as passionately as you do it, you get up in the morning for them and you hope that you grow this business so that they can all benefit from it. So that for me is the biggest part of Dykes van Heerden.
And that's testament to probably your evolution and journey as a leader as well. And not a lot of people know this, but I've already started writing my next book, and it's going to focus around leadership and how most people, when they're given leadership positions, they aren't ready for it, or they believe they're not ready for it. But one of the big shifts in becoming a leader is that exactly what you just said there. It's no longer about me and what I can get. It's about how I can build others and how I can develop a team. And if you're doing that already, then you're already leading your business into this new dimension.
Well, I look forward to reading the book, Grant.
Yeah, it'll take a while. But Lisa, thank you so much. I think we've had an amazing chat. It's just rolled. It's flowed. We've done 35 minutes in the blink of an eye. So thank you for your time today.
Pleasure.
Thank you for all the amazing lessons that you've given to the listeners. And let me tell you, I have a range of people that listen, from youngsters to people our age and older. And I know that what you've spoken about today, they can translate and relate it to whatever they're doing in their life. If people want to get hold of you, how do they get hold of you?
So you can find me on Instagram, Boniface 101. You can reach out to me there.
Can they
follow
slide
me
into
there.
your DMs?
Yes, they can. And then DVHKZN is always a platform where they can reach me too.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. And to anyone out there, if you're looking for copies of my Thoughtonomy book, website thoughtonomy.co.za, go and grab yourself a coffee, or a coffee and a copy. You can come visit me in my office for a coffee if you want. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening, everybody.